And we're back for another episode of Hard Knock Life, dedicated to the new core of hip-hop, the business, the brand, and the balance between authenticity and entertainment. And of course, we are recording in one of the most authentic spots in New York City. Shout out to Frosthetic, home of classic material, here in Grand Street in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Don't go to the other Grand Street. Can't help you if you try. Don't at us. It's your fault. I warned you. We breaking down the deals and the real, the bars and the beef, connecting the echoes of the past with the news of the present and predictions of the future. And of course, I never introduced myself first. I never introduced the gang because it's about the community. I am your host and your moderator, tentatively your moderator, Saul Goodman, Lion of Bed-Stuy. And my co-host is currently living his best hot life in Europe, which is interesting because by the time they hear this, he'll be back. But that's all right. Shout out to the Cain, Marko, New Jersey's juggernaut. I don't have a. Does he have a sound bite? I don't know. Okay,
I think it was. I think he has one.
The Hot 97.
No, I think he does have one.
Okay, I need that sound bite.
He does have the sound bite. You should go on his SoundCloud.
Let's personalize this.
Yeah, go for it.
The gang is here. Mika, you want to say hi?
Hi, this is Mika. B-side anthems. Executive producer of the show, I guess. Maybe. I don't know what I do.
I think so.
Maybe. I have a little role here on this podcast. But that's it. That's all I do.
Is that your sexy voice or your radio voice, or is it just both?
Ooh, it's both.
Modern Marvel's here with us.
Yo.
Now I know that's just his sexy voice. He ain't got a radio voice yet. That's all right. And we have a guest. I think he's still a guest. I think he's part of the gang.
He's part of the crew. He's part of
the
gang.
Go ahead. Just go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Hey guys, it's Michael Pratt.
Okay, Project Pratt. I thought you were gonna go.
I gotta go on my Twitter handle.
Let's work on the branding here, okay?
My brand's Project Pratt.
Yes, man.
Honestly, if I'd had a choice, the other option was Mike Prizzle, but that was like that's my OG account. That was way before. That was before everything.
Yeah,
so
your aim.
Project
maybe.
Pratt. I was like, I'm gonna be doing a bunch of projects, Pratt. But I don't know if I would brand myself that. But that is how people refer to me. So it's Project Pratt on Twitter if you follow, and if you don't, you should. And here I am, hanging out, fresh aesthetic.
What was it, Michael Prizzle?
Mike Prizzle.
Mike Prizzle, way to 2003.
Well, it was 2010.
2010? With Prizzle? My goodness.
I was a Prizzle in 2010.
Following behind trends, I'm sorry, man. What was that?
I was going to say I was in the South, so we were a little behind. Prizzle was pretty hot. Putting Z's on stuff was pretty hot back in the 10s.
They were definitely wearing Gerbo in 2006. And I was like, what? Gerbo? Y'all still this colorful? No hate to Atlanta though. Well, maybe a little bit. We're gonna see. We have a new topic. We were wondering what could be the hottest city in rap right now, and that kind of evolved into what could be the most influential. And is that a conversation for this year or for throughout the course of hip-hop? So let's start first with the hottest. And for most of hip-hop, it's been pretty easy to decide. It was either New York or LA. Do you agree?
So yeah, it used to be pretty much just East Coast, West Coast is how it was lumped in. And East Coast was just the general way of saying New York, and West Coast was the general way of saying LA. But it was pretty much New York and LA at one point. And then
I think it first started with Outkast, where they
What?
I think that when you're talking about hip hop as a community respecting the music out of the South, I think that when Big Boy
South
and 3 Stacks,
South got something to say. Is that what
no,
you're saying?
I mean obviously they've been around.
But when Andre made that comment at the Source Awards, that's what sort of shifted it to the South. in terms of like maybe we should be respecting them.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'll ride with that.
Yeah, that's. I don't know.
Outkast
if
was not
anybody-
the first. Just to
I
clear it
know.
up,
No, I
not
wasn't
the
talking
first
about. I'm
Southern
talking
rap
about
group.
where. No, absolutely
Just
not.
wanna make sure
Obviously,
being clear.
UGK was out
When you
there.
listen back, you'll hear it and you'll say, "Ooh, that did sound wild." So we'll just clear that up.
I know.
for you.
I'm gonna keep it on. I'm definitely gonna keep it on there and see what kind of reactions.
I was taking the bag at first.
Yeah, me too.
Yo.
And I think it started
No,
with
no. I'm talking about
Outkast.
when you're talking.
Because I was like,
I was like, all right, so maybe I do need to
Wait.
generation myself down.
All right,
for
so
this
I'm definitely gonna
conversation.
run it back.
okay.
When we're talking about like hottest in hip hop, there was definitely UGK. Scarface and his gang were definitely well respected. But when you're talking about America
Influence, impact,
and rap music,
impact.
yeah,
Impact.
but what else was there? Like,
Yeah.
how did niggas think I was?
I was thinking about this, but I was thinking about this on the train here. Is that definitely started out in New York, right? Went over to LA, in the West Coast, and then I think the biggest jump of influence, the biggest wave of influence, because it did, there were other states and whatnot. You had Chicago, but Stankonia, like that album. Granted, there would be no Outkast without Tribe, but Stankonia was such a groundbreaking. It incorporated, hip hop has always incorporated multiple genres, but that was just such an electric album, and it did perform well at the Grammys. And I don't think that you get a lot of the stuff that you hear now without that album, without people knowing that you can take it there. In a similar way that Kanye has done, but I think that one, that was pre-Kanye. So I think that was probably like the biggest influence out of the South in terms of it doesn't really sound like the South. Like Outkast never really sounded like the South, maybe outside of their first album. But Stankonia, it was definitely like, then you just kind of saw that everywhere. But even with Diplomats, right, or the Dipset, they were definitely heavily influenced by Southern aesthetic
So
and
that's
fashion.
an interesting conversation to have with Dipset, and I think that's something that comes up with the ASAP Mob. Sometimes I don't think it's fair, because saying that New York is being influenced by the South is kind of disregarding the fact that a lot of people from New York are from the South. And you have those cousins and you have those aunts and uncles that put you onto that sound. And that's as much a part of your experience growing up as being on the block here in New York or in Harlem.
But
or
it's still
Bronx.
from the South.
The South influenced New York. You can very well say that New York has influenced the South.
Right. So the conversation is hottest city right now.
Yes. I'm going to say definitively that I believe that New York is the hottest city right now.
I'm sweating inside the retail store, so I can attest to that. Why is New York the hottest city right now?
When you actually look at which artists are making noise, both musically and just within headlines, it's a whole host of New York artists. Right now, the biggest beef that everybody is continually talking about is Cardi B of the Bronx versus Nicki Minaj of Queens. Then you have Tekashi 6ix9ine, whether you love him or hate him, has everybody everywhere saying nigga. But then there's also obviously Hove, who even though everybody likes
Jay-Z, I forgot.
as many people that like to say he's riding Beyonce, his wife's coattails.
This is the Beyonce era.
Quite frankly, all her raps were probably written by Hove
100%.
on that Carter's
100%.
album.
She sounds
Are we really gonna have that debate
She went
right
crazy.
now? Okay.
All right. So, but
But
Jay-Z's been
I'm-
hot for since he touched. So, what?
But
so
I feel like
that's-
there's been a rejuvenation of his career because he's accepted.
But that's not New York.
Yes, it is.
Nah.
Are you
Sorry.
insane?
I won't do it. I
No,
won't
that's
do it.
you're bugged.
I won't do Beyonce as influencing as speaking for New York.
As
I won't do
hottest.
it.
He's one of the hottest.
Nah.
Okay.
He's hottest in the world.
Representing New York.
Nah. He lives in L.A. Come back to NY, Hov. We'll talk.
As Papoose once said, call it New York because we keep reinventing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
I
not- that's
understand,
actually-
but Jay-Z's not making music that is influencing other people as to how they make their music. Jay-Z is actually on the Jay-Z and Beyonce album. Granted, it's the Jay-Z and Beyonce album because we're not talking about Hope's solo project. That was its own thing. But this Jay-Z and Beyonce album, you got a Migos record on there. You got some things on there that are for that. So I know Jay-Z is New York. He's the most influential in New York. Everybody looks to Jay-Z as to what to do next. It's almost like we shouldn't even have that conversation though. That's like, because it doesn't count. It's not. He's not even participating in the new New York. He hasn't issued one comment about the Nicki versus Cardi. He hadn't talked about, he's doing his own thing. So like Jay-Z influences everybody. He's his own. He puts New York on his back. He's got Brooklyn behind him. All that. Cardi, Tekashi, Nicki on some records. There's a sound coming out of New York that's very aggressive and very. It's percolating a little bit. Hove ain't fucking with that.
No, I'm not going to let you disregard Hove. Quite frankly, he's representing New York. New York sound is international because it is, and that's okay. Hove is good on any MLK Boulevard, and that's a declaration
You
that
can't
a
just
Brooklyn
throw
nigga.
everything is love
That's a
lyrics at me to
declaration
make
that a
your
Brooklyn
case.
nigga is making, and nobody, especially Hove, is not going to say
in 4 years.
he's going to be in Brooklyn for the title concert.
He might
is
slide
still
through.
hot.
He might hang
Nah,
out on
he's
the
gonna be out
tarmac.
here. He's gonna be out here. He continues to represent. Sorry that I'm gonna have to burst your bubble on that one, but he's
I'm
definitely
just
still out
saying
here.
that I'm not gonna say Dr. Dre is, the most influential out of Cali right now. Dr. Dre ain't put out any music in a while. Jay-Z has put out music, but he's not putting out music it doesn't represent.
Yes, he
New York,
is.
man.
That's a false equivalency. Dre is actually not putting out music, but that's not all. Fabulous is still here.
No.
Still here.
Nope.
Jadakiss is still here. I mean, you don't want to disagree, you could take it up with them. But New York is still here. ASAP Mob, Ferg is definitely hot, especially now he's everywhere with those Adidas commercials. 12E is lyrical. He doesn't get the same type of press, but he just
But they're not
released work.
influencing anyone else.
But
That's
they're
what
hot.
the question is.
They're hot.
No.
And
But they're
I'm
not
saying
hot.
that they're out
They're
here.
not hot.
Then we have Don Q, a Boogie, and all the rest of the
A-Boogie's
High
not hot.
Bridge.
A
Okay,
Boogie's not hot.
so you wanna do? Are you going to argue for Atlanta?
I don't think Atlanta has stopped being hot since they started, and it's been like a decade. It's been more than a decade that they've been running, and the only reason why I say Atlanta, other than the fact that they're the only ones that've been doing it, is just because everyone's looking down. Now we're kind of getting some artists. You've listed some artists that, yeah, we got like one or two that are doing it right now, and they've been hot for a minute, or Nicki and Cardi have sparked some conversations, so maybe they're the most entertaining at the moment. Maybe they're the ones that we're wanting to watch, but I'm not bumping Nicki's album. And no one's listening to Nicki's album and saying, ooh, you know what? I need one of them. I need one of them ones. I need one of those records. But Cardi is someone that I think that labels are going to look at, like you see Bad Bobby or whatever her name is. Like, that's definitely just a Cardi regenerated. So there's some influence there. But Cardi's shit is produced by people in Atlanta and written by people in Atlanta. And the people that she's signed to are in Atlanta. And her baby Fava is Atlantean. And it's all coming out of that water. So what I'm saying is that that Atlanta's had it for a minute, and they don't seem to really be stopping. But New York, I will say, and I was even thinking about this last night as I was listening to some, not Tekashi or Cardi, but I was listening to like Rock Marciano, and I was listening to guys like that, Ka, and I was thinking, I was like, there is a collective of rappers, of like real spitters, like real rappers, and there's sort of like a sound, and nobody's really like shined a light on it yet, thank goodness, I guess, because we can still, we still get to enjoy it that way. But Westside is in there as well, Conway and them. So there's that group too that's coming out of New York. So they're on the bubble. They in the next year we could see New York really like completely turned around. Tekashi has certainly heated things up, but you got to be hotter than the story of the week to be influential. We're talking about influence. We're not talking about who's occupying your mind that week.
I understand the argument for Atlanta Migos, especially since they're currently touring with Drake, which could be an argument for Toronto. Drake's not the only one out here. I'm just saying. We have Black who just released a phenomenal album. Future. Yeah, 21 Savage, 2 Chainz.
Black from Atlanta?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mentioned it.
Yeah.
Or Six Lack, as he should be known as. Yachty, obviously.
So now we're talking about R&B, not just rap. So I mean, Atlanta's really.
No, I'm bringing
permeating-
up like hip hop as a culture. Quite frankly, not only encompasses rap, but a lot of this new age.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it even
R&B.
the singers, like even the vibey shit's coming out of Atlanta as well, right? Like not just the rap. So it's not just that the Migos are the hottest and everyone wants to bite the Migos flow. It's like no, there's some cats coming out on the R&B tip from Atlanta that people are trying to emulate as well.
Yep. I have a question about Los Angeles. I don't see why they wouldn't be considered the hottest. They have Kendrick. Schoolboy is supposed to be releasing something. J-Rock, YG just released something. Ty Dolla $ign is expected to
YG
bring
just
out
released something.
Yes.
Hey, name 2 songs off there. What's 2 songs on YG's album?
YG Up.
Is there another one?
No.
No. He was just on the new Mozzie record, the Thugs Mansion remake with Ty Dolla $ign. I heard that in the background of somewhere one day, and I enjoyed that. I'm gonna go back and listen to it though. So YG's not. He's irrelevant. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
What he's been saying about Trump.
2 years ago.
Fuck Donald Trump is still relevant. It's always going to be relevant as long as
Right.
as
But
long
this was
as-
the song 2 years ago. It's like saying that Mac Miller's Donald Trump song.
What was the? I mean, you're right, because I can't remember. I know that I was fucking with the joint that he had with Quavo, and
the Atlanta guy? Damn.
yeah,
Crazy.
as well as
6 degrees of separation.
No shit,
Yeah,
man. I'm
for
telling
real.
you, like, even if no matter where you go, you're gonna find one of these Migos hanging out.
At least.
Yeah, the best joint on the Six Black album, even though he's Atlanta as well, is the one with Future. Now I'll make the case for LA being the most influential, or maybe even the hottest
and wait,
city.
hold on. I want to also
I
bring up.
make the case for it being the hottest city right now because that's where a lot of the work is getting done. That's where a lot of these cats are going and they're camping out and they're making their albums and their songs and they're working together and it's like a huge community. Now, that all sounds dope. I don't know if the music has hit, like I think there's like a lot of records. Like I know Hitmaker's out there and does a lot. I know that like I don't and maybe I just don't catch it or maybe somebody needs to like point me in the right direction. But I know that out of Atlanta, it's like we get something every day. And as far as this huge community of people doing work in LA, I just haven't seen the output, but I suppose somebody could, again, like direct me to it. But if we bring up a YG or we bring up some of these other West Coast artists who have released this year, even a J-Rock, and I think a lot of people will put J-Rock on their album of the year list.
Which I don't.
I didn't have it there, but I haven't spent a ton of time with the album. But J-Rock or Schoolboy, any of these other TDE dudes, Kendrick Lamar is Kendrick Lamar. And you can be signed to Kendrick and you can have a cool wave on your own, but I don't know if anybody's influenced by Schoolboy Q. I don't know if anybody's influenced by Ab-Soul. Maybe somebody like on a peer-to-peer level, like maybe J. Cole is influenced by Ab-Soul, lyrically or, the way that he writes, or maybe Schoolboy Q is influenced in great part by Mac Miller. But I don't think that, again, we get these landmark guys, a Jay-Z, a Kendrick Lamar. Well, it's like saying that Chicago's the hottest city because Kanye, fired everything up this summer. And that just wouldn't be accurate. So to pin an entire state or entire region's temperature on one dude, I think kind of ruins the point because it's supposed to be about power in numbers. So so that's why there is a case being made for New York currently. We're loading up our guys. Atlanta's just been on and they've got such an army and it's all over everything. Not even in the flow, not even if you actually hear their voice on record. But like if you got Beyonce doing the Migos flow on a ballad on the Lemonade album, and if you don't want to know what I'm talking about, I encourage you to skip the track called All Night where she does that. So many people that love it, they just want to touch it. Kiss up and rub up, fill up. Just let 'em rub up and be like, dude, that's
Yep,
the
true.
Migos flow on a ballad. So what I'm saying is that we're talking about influence. Tekashi 6ix9ine has not influenced nobody to do nothing except scream on camera. Cardi B has influenced some of these, some women out here to think bigger than maybe where they are. So that's cool. But I need more. We need to see more throughout the game.
Shifting over to the conversation about influence, I think that there are more things to consider beyond the artists themselves. I think that New York is still there because, quite frankly, New York radio is still relevant. Power 105 and Hot 97 are still important. Still important to a media run for an artist.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Breakfast
The platform. Definitely.
Exactly.
But the radio is not important.
Of course, the radio isn't, but the brands that are on the radio. Breakfast Club is still very important to conversations when it comes to hip hop and rap music. Joe Budden Podcast, Everyday Struggle. These are brands that are deciding on, well, not deciding, but they are influencing hip hop in the rap music.
That
There's
New York,
influence.
that
Yes.
New York is
I will
influential because
say-
all the fucking business gets done in New York in the music business.
That as well, that can be something, but
I
no,
mean,
I would
just
say not.
because
I would
Complex-
disagree with
just
that because of
Complex is
QC.
here.
I would disagree with that strictly off of the case of QC. Being a powerhouse in Atlanta, as you brought up, they have their hands in everything, and they continue to mobilize their artists.
To your point, Everyday Struggle was hot because of the Migos and Yachty.
I disagree with that.
I don't disagree with that because I made the point. But I'll strengthen the point by saying that Everyday Struggle didn't get hot until they went to the awards show and Migos bowed up on Joe. That gave them their moment. Yachty coming on there, Joe yelling at him. They needed these guys to pop, and they needed Joe to pop, but they needed those things to go on. And so Atlanta, once again, you came through in the clutch because Lord knows what these New Yorkers would have
No, I
done
disagree
without
with
some
that.
Southern hospitality.
Because Joe Budden was already gaining the traction that they had. Yes, something went viral. Granted, but I don't know if you want to call it.
Then they
the
made
friction.
a video, and they got Joe and Nadeska and Ak in the video, and they're saying his name on the record. Dog, it's a whole game of promotion going on. That's not strengthening anybody's point on either side. So what are we trying to say here?
We're just debating it. So
What are we debating? That New York is influential because they have
Yeah,
buildings in
but
New York.
do you
where
believe that
these
Atlanta
companies are
is
held?
more influential in hip hop?
I think that right now the most influential thing in hip hop is content, and people like you and I and Mika here who are talking about it. Because I think that a lot of these songs that you're hearing right now are for public fodder.
Sure.
Eminem's going to make an entire album talking about this person, that person, and that person, because now more than ever, even though that's always been his MO, it's going to get the most chatter. And the more names you can say, the bigger the name you can say. All right, maybe Donald Trump ain't going to get a rise. But let me talk about Joe Budden. And he says, it gave Joe Budden like a bar and a half or a half a bar. And now we get 2.5 weeks. We get an hour and a half from Joe on everything he thought about Eminem. So the most influence is coming from that medium. Now, where those people are, I think
They're
that
in New York.
We're here in the Mecca.
Sure.
I know that when I moved to New York from North Carolina, when I was flipping the coin between Los Angeles and New York, I thought about everyone that I wanted to work with, and I realized that they're all in New York. So kind of had to bite the cold weather bullet on that and just go ahead and go to New York. But no, I mean, yes, everything happens in New York. But I think that a lot of people, and I've got questions for those people because there's too many of them now to where I'm getting concerned. There's a lot of people moving out west. And the specific people that have moved out west that I have questions for, it's just like, okay, so like, is there something we don't know? Like, is something like is this side of the world gonna fall off? Because everyone's going out there.
I think creatively, I think that there are a lot more opportunities out there in LA. And I bring up Revolt because of the layoffs that they had made, and they're switched to more lifestyle content, where you're actually, if you are interested in being creative, I think that there is a better chance of you joining a community or even a commune of creatives to do that.
Well, that's only because they were dying, number-wise. Because they were doing just music videos. Nobody cares about music videos.
I mean, Revolt's definitely like. I mean, we got to give them a little time before we start.
I'm just saying that
about
I'm
what
just
they're
bringing them
doing or
up
have
as
done.
the latest. I think what we saw with
I don't know they're the latest.
But they've
I
been
think-
around forever. They've been around for like...
they've been over 10 years,
like,
5 or 8
like
years
7 at
since
least
2000.
years.
Revolt?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I remember when it started.
I remember when they
was-
launched it
I
and
remember-
nobody cared.
Nobody
Ex-
cared,
exactly.
except
When
I
they
He was
remember-
on
relaunched
the
when they
channel,
were-
like on the like in Harlem, like
Yeah,
on the
and-
steps, and he was like, "Here we go, baby!" And
And
like I
nobody
think I was the only one watching.
Nobody-
I
did
wanted
care.
to
Me
work
and
for
you.
them. I was like, I'm gonna work for them.
Yeah. I was like, "This is great." And then 8 years later, it's like,
never-
"Hey, why don't we do the Joe Budden show?" It's like,
Exactly.
okay,
And
well,
that
that'll
was
work.
it. I was really.
But
and
I
then,
am
like,
hopeful. I'm so hopeful.
I have
for
to
them
disagree with both
with
of you.
this.
I get what you're talking about when it comes to the music, but then there is this drive for more content,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
them getting Breakfast Club was the first step, and them shifting from just putting out a whole bunch of different music shows and now bringing out content that's discussing the
It is
culture and the
indicative.
lifestyle.
It is indicative of the way that the culture is going.
Exactly,
will
and I
agree with
think
you
that
there.
LA is a part of that. And I'm bringing up. I'm brought up Revolt because they are the most recent to make that shift. What Odd Future has done is not unique in LA. They just probably the first to pop. There are definitely other Overdose, Pactive. Those are huge crews of people who have come together and are being creative. So that's what I mean.
Okay, so what do you think are the criteria? Because now you're going into the business side, the creative side, the artistic side, the music. So like, what is it? Because right now, like when I think of influential city, I would say Atlanta, because every sound, like every song that's come out has that like down south like sound, you know? Like
yeah, people
Fetty
didn't know
Wap,
where
you know?
Rocky was from.
Yeah.
People didn't know like
Fetty
Cardi
Wap.
was like. Well, it was like Cardi was like, what, she's not rapping like she's from New York.
No, yeah, and that's the whole thing. They changed their style. So then what would you consider? But then of course all the business is gonna be in New York and LA. The creative part, like, you know what I'm saying? So there's so many.
I don't think that we have anything to talk about without the music, though, right? So the music has to come first. Otherwise, we're just gonna be sitting here talking about the good old days, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have that to keep the conversation going. And if Joe Budden has to waste his morning talking about 3 dudes from Atlanta who are by no means the most talented individuals in the game, however, they may be the most influential, most popular at the moment, and have been that way for a better part of 3 years, then that kind of has to go in the hat of, or on the side of, Atlanta. Because the content, wherever it's created, the content could be created in Raleigh, North Carolina. The content revolves around artists, musicians, things coming out of Atlanta, no cap.
That's the consensus here.
I think so. I mean, I agree.
Okay, great. I think this was a great conversation. And no,
But has Atlanta been the most influential of all time, though?
of all time, no, I wouldn't say all time.
Well, that's...
I wouldn't say.
I don't know.
I wouldn't say all time, and I can definitely see how they're the most influential. Definitely in the new millennium,
Well, Here's how you do
Actually-
that. Here's how you do that. I would think that you would have to think about how long hip-hop's been alive. 45 years.
45 years.
And then you would have to think about how long the South has really been a force. So we could go back to that South Got Something to Say, Andre 3000 at the Source Awards. We could do that, or we could go back further. But if the South has been permeating hip-hop for more than half of hip-hop's existence, then I think you would have to give it to Atlanta at this point as influential. Now, obviously, no one's taking anything away from the foundation and where it started, because anytime anybody wants to test your skills as an MC, what do they make you throw on? That 90s New York,
Yeah,
that boom bap, right? They gotta so that's where it's rooted in. That's the essence. But in terms of influence, what has been the most influential on this game? Went out west, and then we came down south. Even Nelly would have been like a southern artist.
Yeah,
But he was from
St.
out
Louis.
west. You know
No,
what I
he's
mean?
St. Louis.
So
St.
like,
Louis is the South. No, I would still say that New
Sorry,
York
St.
has
Louis.
been the most influential. I think the shift where you really see Atlanta really as a powerhouse culturally is because of how the internet has basically taken that power away from labels. And you had the South, and that's not just including Atlanta. I think Atlanta was following behind what they were doing in Houston and Memphis, where they were selling out of their trunk, and that's where UGK, Ghetto Boys, well, everything that Jay Prince was doing, that's where that came from. But I think that Atlanta was definitely poised to push their own content away from the labels. I think that's a narrative that's been brought
and
up.
maybe being in New York
over
made
and
rappers lazy. Like, oh, you just got to run up to the building and try to
Yeah.
like give them your tape.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking like, why don't we just give all these CDs to folks ourselves?
Yeah, I think that some people would say that 50 might have had something to do with turning New York into people
A wasteland, a no man's land.
Because at that time when he exploded,
Yeah.
Terror Squad was around, Dipset was around,
Yep.
D Block was around, and he came at
There can only
every
be one. There
top
can only
dog
be
in
one.
those
Yeah.
crews.
So thanks a lot. But hey,
so-
get rich or die trying. Held us down, didn't it? Still got that one.
But
God damn.
no, I think that
All that for one album.
Did you have another point to make?
I was gonna say that I think you could really gauge a region's influence on whether or not they have a dead person in the top 3, because it's always Pac and Biggie when we talk, right? There's Big L, there's Big Pun. You got Nate Dogg. Who from the
Pimp C,
South?
Pimp C.
Stand
DJ Screw,
corrected.
like chopped and screwed music.
Oh, he's got the title. He's got
is-
a song
is a
by
genre
the same name on
of
Travis
music.
Scott's album. How could you deny the influence? All right, so they got a couple. Pimp C for sure. But let's be honest.
Well, I think this was a great conversation, and I hope it sparks a lot of discussion on our social media. You can find us at HKL Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what you think. What's the hottest city? What's the most influential city? And until next time, we know y'all gotta live this hard knock life, but we hope y'all make it look easy. Somebody gotta say peace.
Is this the podcast? I
Peace.
just wanted to ask though, the Hard Knock Life podcast, is that the podcast where you get treated and not tricked?